Every single one of us has been greatly affected by the current pandemic. There have been jobs lost, fear and anxiety, sickness and death, and livelihoods ruined. Although some have been affected more than others, we have all suffered in some way or another. I'm here to tell my story of how I'm dealing with the pandemic and relate it to an artifact to tell the story of how I'm getting through these hard times. When thinking about the item I wanted to choose, I wanted to be something that would not only remind everyone of the current pandemic, but I also wanted it to share how I personally am dealing with the current situation. I have chosen to use my journal as my pandemic cultural artifact because it helps me cope each and every day, and it helps me see the positive in a situation that's far from it. My journal tells my pandemic story, and I can always use it to reflect back on my day or go back to in the future to show myself that it is possible to make light out of a not so good situation. Although journaling has been used throughout the world and in many different cultures, I believe it has become a very Americanized thing to do. With all the stress we feel in our lives, such as school or work, we need a way to cope with it. The U.S. places a ton of stress not only on those in the labor force, but on kids and teens in school. There is immense pressure for us to succeed in school and get the best scores in order for us to get into a good school or to get the job that we've been hoping for. This becomes specifically important during this pandemic with all the stress and anxiety we have over losing jobs or what's going to happen in the future with our education. I found that my way to cope with stress and to feel better about each day was to journal. It relieves my stress because it makes me feel that I've had a productive day. I know many friends and family members that journal as well. They say it also helps them with stress and makes them feel motivated to be more productive. With all the stress and pressure Americans feel especially, journaling, I believe, should be and is a huge part of the American culture. As for the pandemic that we are in worldwide, this is something that I do and that many others have started to do to help ourselves cope with the current circumstances. Although many are at work or school, there are a new set of stressors for us that we all need to learn how to deal with in an appropriate manner. As for my personal story, the pandemic has and continues to bring me lots of stress and anxiety, just like the majority of us. I remember being at school receiving the email that classes were to be online. At first, I was extremely happy and relieved because I was able to relax more and not stress about my classes as much. After a couple weeks of being home, my feelings started to change. Not being able to see my friends from school or not being able to be at MSU in general was upsetting me more and more each day. The boredom of just sitting at home and not being able to go out was getting to me. In order to deal with all my concerns, I continue to use my journal as much as I can. It helps me find things to look forward to and helps me stay positive. It is a very important artifact to me, not only during the pandemic, but throughout the many years that I've used it. I wanted to take a look at how people around the world have been dealing with the current pandemic. I found some quotes online that demonstrate how these people have been dealing with the virus.
Physical distancing has affected both our physical and mental health. We've only been moving around inside the house, we're getting backaches.
We've been feeling stressed, not because we are afraid that the disease would be hard to bear, but because should we get ill, we'd have no idea what would happen to our young son.
I have already lost one uncle and one aunt on two sides of the family due to COVID-19. There has been no or limited ceremonial service, so the physiological impact of these deaths is going to be long-term and painful.
I don't usually tell many that I have a journal, although I should since it is a big stress reliever. There are many out there that associate journaling with mental illness. People believe that it is something that therapists recommend to patients, so many choose not to share their journals with the public. This, however, is not the case. I use my journal to cope with stress along with many other people. I started journaling a little over a year ago during my freshman year of college. I remember being bored and deciding to start a journal for my own entertainment. I quickly realized how useful and de-stressing it was to write in it on a day-to-day basis. The idea of journaling, I believe, has become an Americanized idea. With all the stress we deal with and are continuing to deal with during these times, journaling may be a way to cope with feelings and anxiety. I have found journaling to be very calming and a positive experience that's helping me every day throughout the pandemic. My journal is very important to me, and I know I can look back on it to see how I got through the pandemic, and it can show me that although times may be tough, there are worse situations to be in. If you want to learn how to journal, here's a link to the website that gets you started.